We're back from recess. We left off on bill number 159-37 LS. So we're still on second reading, bill 159-37 LS. On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to speak on the bill? Senator Brown, you're recognized on the bill.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I certainly, obviously, as a co-sponsor, rise in support of Bill 159. You know, there's enough blame to go around literally twice over. And certainly, it's for this reason that we as a body actually really need to come together to do what we can to support the Department of Education, to get our students back into the classroom. But we can't stop there. I mean, we also have to ensure that Department of Education as well as public health are held accountable. And that's what this measure does. I mean, in fact, that's what all these measures that have been introduced do to support DOE and public health to do their jobs effectively and efficiently. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, that's why we were elected, to address these long-standing issues. And while certainly we as policymakers are not at the administrative, operational end of the government, what we do is pass policy. And we recognize the challenges. These issues at the Department of Education have been long-standing. We can't undo what's happened in the past. What we can do moving forward is ensure that we try to get our children into the classroom and back into the learning environment. After listening to the presentations that we've heard this week, to have both public health and DOE here once again, in the information they provided us, is becoming even more and more clear. They're obviously not going to be able to maximize the opportunity in less than 20 days to ensure that as many of our children can get back into the classroom. I mean, certainly we've had this unfortunate typhoon that devastated the island. Just the fact that Simon Sanchez in particular now is a school that's been determined that it cannot be repaired and reused and that it must be torn down and rebuilt, that in and of itself for the Department of Education is going to be a tremendous challenge, just to address double session for that particular school. To try to think they are going to be able to multiply all that with all these other schools or do online teaching in this short time, I mean, that's almost a Herculean task. Maybe we should say they do it, but it doesn't appear from information they provided us and to the public that they can do it. We all support having clean, safe classrooms. I think we're all appalled to begin with that in spite of all the efforts to support the Department of Education over the years, that this is still where we're at. In some cases, as I mentioned before on this floor, we're even worse off than we used to be. But we need to balance how we proceed. We need to ensure that teachers can expect to know where they're going to go and what they're going to do and when they're going to do it and when they'll have a classroom that they can educate our children in. Parents need to have some sense of certainty of when they're going to send their children to school, and I don't think it's going to be acceptable for them to be told, oh no, we're just moving it back till, you know, the 22nd or the 23rd, but oh, by the way, we may not be able to have your child in school for another 3 months. Just based on the presentation that Public Health represented, that their teams can only do maybe 3 schools a week. And that's assuming, again, that all 3 schools end up passing their review and that they permit these schools. So there's no one here, as mentioned, you know, by Senator Tello, that wants to not have our children in a safe environment. But is it going to be that we're going to simply put everything to a grinding halt because everything is not absolutely perfect? If they have to cordon off areas, I mean, the legislations that have been proposed will allow them those opportunities so that the areas of the school that are safe can be used for education. Because if we're expecting our children to sacrifice their education and their time, including teachers, how about those that are federally funded? Is the federal government going to provide the funding when they're not actually out there meeting their mandates on why these federal grants have been provided? Are they still going to get paid? There's so many other issues that are involved here. And I don't think anyone wants to delay anything. But the reality is something we directly, as policymakers, don't control. We don't control the ability of DOE to perform or the ability of public health to do what they need to do. They've already relayed to us very clearly what they can do and what they cannot do. Maybe we agree with it, maybe we don't. But we're not the hands and we're not the legs that administrate the government. They are. And I don't think this is a pass for them either. I mean, we're asking them to be accountable so that we can also ensure that the timelines are met. And as Senator Blas mentioned in his opening comments, we're going to make sure they perform. And it doesn't stop them from doing anything sooner. They don't have to wait another year to do that. I think we all agree that these issues have been brought into the forefront. It's going to be very difficult for DOE or anyone else, including public health, to wiggle their way out of this situation. I think all of us have our eyes on them and expect them to perform, as they should. So I don't believe in any way, even though we supported our earlier bill this year. That was the desire. That is still the desire. But I think we also need to deal with the reality of where we're at. And if the objective here is to keep children out of school, then we should do nothing, because that's exactly what's going to end up happening. A large number of our children will not be able to go into the classroom. And I am concerned even with online learning, because there are many children, and hopefully, as the superintendent said, they'll be able to get all the elementary schools addressed. Our younger children will be having direct instruction. But what about middle school kids? Are you going to leave your 11, 12, 13-year-old at home alone? And that may be a reality parents would have to face, because, they have to go to work. Most parents get up and go to work every day. They might not have the luxury of a lot of leave to be able to stay home with their child. I've done that online learning during COVID. Fortunately, I was free to do so because I wasn't employed at the time. But not everybody has that luxury. And that is not an ideal situation where we're going to leave children unattended. Or the other reality about, and it's heartbreaking to think that there are children that have to depend on going to school to get a decent meal. That is heartbreaking. Gosh, who would think, that's the one thing, with your child, you want to make sure, that they're fed, that they're clothed, that they're clean, that they're safe. But that's not the reality for every child in our community, sad to say. There has to be some balance here. And yes, we have to maybe step back and rethink our course in light of the reality that's being presented to us over the last couple of days. I don't think that's something we can ignore, and I don't think there's anything political about that, because I don't know many of us here, but I'm certainly not on the Adeloop's list of most liked senators, nor do I have any intention of being there. So I don't think this is about the politics. I think this is about ensuring we can get our children back in the classroom and have some sense of surety in the next few weeks as we lead into this process and maximize the opportunity of getting as many of our children back to class and back to learning. I think Senator Fisher articulated that very well with his comments yesterday. So there's nobody here who doesn't want to ensure that our classrooms are safe. And I can't account over the years why. There are many other reasons why things in government don't function as effectively and efficiently as we like, because we set it up that way. We don't hold people accountable very well. Our laws are almost designed that way, because we don't want to be the bad guy, but then, look at the consequence. But that's not going to help address where we're at this juncture. We need to get our kids back to school. And I don't think parents are going to want to wait 3 or 4 months, especially those level 3 schools that are going to take even longer to address major repairs. That's going to take time. And then DOE is going to have a tremendous challenge in trying to do that. But you know what? I can say, like Senator Tello, I'm at these meetings. I don't care what time of the day they're held. They're during the day, they're after work. Odds are fairly good. I'm sitting there. I'm sure the chairman can acknowledge that. And I'll be there the rest of the term, wherever, whenever, whatever time, to make sure that DOE is following through, to make sure public health is also following through with their commitments. It's going to be very hard for them not to do that. But you know what? She's going to take a little more work and effort to get us where we need to go, and maybe she's going to take us a little longer. But I think we're going to get it done. But we can't do that at the expense of having some sense of organization moving into the new school year and opening our schools and getting our children back into the classroom. So with that, Madam Speaker, I definitely rise in support of this bill.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, 159-37 LS. Is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the bill? Vice Speaker, do you mind?
On the main motion, I will recognize Speaker Therese Terlai. On the main motion, you are recognized.
Thank you very much. I am, on this bill, I've heard some of the good intentions of the sponsors, and there's parts of this bill that are great. I love the reporting requirements. They're going to mandate DOE report every month, and as to the status of their schools and the sanitary permits. I especially love it because that's already mandated by Public Law 37-4. In addition to mandating these reports and having them come in and read their reports to us monthly, that public law mandates that they comply in school year 2023-2024. And this bill removes that mandate that DOE comply within school year 2023 and 24, and instead doesn't have to comply until 2024 to 2025 with the sanitary rules and regulations. And that we should do that because the superintendent said he was not going to let anyone into a school that's not safe. I don't very much know this superintendent, but I have all high hopes for him. And I think he's being honest with us. But hasn't every superintendent been honest with us and told us that they would not allow school children to go to unsafe conditions? And didn't every superintendent tell us they would fix the schools, especially when we were appropriating money? Not us, previous legislatures appropriating money. When they appropriated money to build Simon Sanchez, they also appropriated money to fix all these schools, the capital improvement projects. None of that happened. So I don't think it's a matter of the will of one superintendent. It's much bigger than that, and it takes an entire government. And the governor was correct when she said the Organic Act doesn't place this responsibility on her, but she's wrong when she says she has no responsibility, because the Organic Act places the responsibility for education on the entire government of Guam. And that's all of us. And that's why we in here have tried bill after bill after bill to give DOE everything that they might need to urge, encourage, authorize, allow the executive branch to give DOE everything that they might need. The problem is that it isn't happening. And now, by this bill, we want to forego the sanitary rules for one more year. In other words, status quo to when DL Paris was closed down, despite the very good intentions of the superintendent. And when every school before that was closed down, despite the very good intentions of the superintendent, the hard work of all the parents and the teachers and the principals, and that's what we're doing, is we're relieving the pressure off of the government of Guam to respond and putting it back. Let your children go to these schools, because we, the legislature, are saying they don't need to comply with the sanitary rules and regulations. Put your students in there if the superintendent says it's safe. Never mind that they've already told us that we've got 12 schools in phase 3 that are not safe, 13 schools in phase 2 that are not yet safe, but that can be made safe if we keep the pressure on them. But now we're saying, never mind that. They don't need to be safe for this school year. We'll make them safe next school year. Next school year, the ARP funds have completely expired. They will be gone. And if they are not used promptly by DOE to fix these schools, they will be used by DOE to pay for personnel and operations, or they will be used who knows where. And if that $20 million is not used right now to fix these schools, it's going to be used throughout the government of Guam for their typhoon response. We don't control that, but we certainly, through our bills and our laws, can put a heavy hand on forcing them to respond in that way, as opposed to making them come in here every month and tell us for 365 days why the schools are not ready again. That doesn't do anything to get them ready. Having them come in here and report over and over why they're not ready. They're already mandated to report, and if we can read the reports, we don't have to call them in to read the reports to us. The reports are published. But I don't want the status quo. I don't want the status quo for FY 23-24. I don't want online, and I don't want double sessions either. But I do not want my schools, my students, or teachers to be put into rooms because the government of Guam could not be bothered to do the mold mitigation right now. That they were going to be given 365 more days. Or that the government of Guam could not get rid of the infestations right now, that we're going to give them 365 more days. Somebody said, don't worry, in the end it falls back on us. No, it does not. Nothing is going to fall back on us. It's falling on those parents. It always has, and it has for the last 2 decades. Right now, we're trying to all get together and say, no, it's on us. Now, not 365 days from now, we all wash our hands, but now. And we're going to help you, and the entire government is going to help you, and we're going to get it done while we have the money so that we don't have to be telling these parents who are using their sweat and their money to improve these schools next year that we have no money. I'm sorry, we did an exemption for 1 year. We might have to exempt you again because now we have no money. That's the circle I find that we're placing ourselves in. I don't want to allow 365 more days of excuses. I don't need them to read the reports to me. I can see that. We've seen that. That's why we came in here in emergency session, because we saw that they've pulled up another reason why there's a delay. And I am willing to do that with every reason that they can come up with of why they don't want to fix a school. I think the legislature can come up with the reason why they should fix that school. And the means. And we have never been this lucky. It's so ironic that we were lucky because we got ARP funds because of a pandemic disaster. But we have never had this opportunity to fix these schools like we do in the next 365 days. But we do not, I think, want to set a policy that it's okay for students to attend schools that do not have to comply with sanitary rules. Despite everybody's good intention, everybody thinks their business is safe until public health comes down. Everybody thinks that. They try so hard. But that's the reason why we have public health. They're a different department. They have a different mandate. It is their sole mandate, and that is to ensure health and safety, not to educate, none of that, but to ensure health and safety. And I think we can do both. If we just continue to assist public health to do what they need to do expeditiously, if we continue to assist DOE to do what it needs to do expeditiously. No outdoors, no releases. They have the big release. They have variances that they can use if they are suitable for the kids. There's nothing to prevent any of these schools from opening if they are suitable for the kids. They can apply for a variance. But what we're doing by this bill is saying, you don't need to apply for a variance because we're giving you that variance. We, the legislature, who knows nothing about the conditions at the schools, are going to give you a variance and say it's okay. Go in there, teachers and students, go in there. Instead of using the time we have to scramble like heck and fix those schools and use every resource that we have. Somebody said, this bill does not forego sanitary rules. That's exactly what it does. It says, they shall come into full compliance by the start of school year 2023-24, and they struck it out, deleted it, and changed it to 2024-2025. So that's exactly what it does. It says you do not have to comply. I don't think we're going to be avoiding double sessions, even though we all would like to not have double sessions. But if we want to get out of double sessions faster, we have to keep pushing them and keep giving them every tool that they can use to get out of the double sessions faster. The parents are going to help us with that. The teachers are going to help us because nobody likes double sessions, but nobody likes dirty classrooms either. And I'm just shocked. Some of us have family and education, and that we're going to tell our teachers, we, the legislature, despite what public health says and despite what DOE has already confirmed, we are insisting you're going to go back there because that's more convenient to teach in a dirty classroom than to force us to fix the classrooms. I would be very surprised that despite what this bill does, it waives the sanitary rules for the year, that public health can allow that. We have an indictment, sorry to say, an indictment of a director for not doing an inspection. So I can't imagine that they're not going to do their inspections. And I bet there's going to be debate whether this allows them not to give permits. Are we opening schools without sanitary permits? I don't think it's very well thought of, and I cannot imagine, after the involvement of the Attorney General in this entire discussion, and the discussion outside of all of this Public Law 37-4 and the sanitary rules and regs, of all the other laws, that we're not going to have schools shut down. So if we have to have schools shut down because they can't meet the adequate education, then why not help these schools to and the Department of Education to do everything that it needs to do to prepare to fix those schools that necessarily have to be shut down because they're unsafe, and to fix them, to use right now and fix them. Instead of just shutting them without any fixing going on, we will be in online for a long time. That's the risk, as opposed to forcing in-person, forcing them to do as much in-person as possible, and that will in turn force them to fix the schools as fast as possible. I just don't see it to be an answer to allow them to come in here every month for the next 12 months to tell us the reason why the schools aren't fixed. We know the reasons right now. And we can fix those schools. We can fix enough so that everybody can go in person. And I think that's what we should do. Not allow this big out that they just don't have to comply with any rules. Every superintendent was given that mandate. And yet we had infestations in school. We currently have infestations at schools like Atacao of mold. At Estumbo, we have infestations. We can go down the list. At Rios, we have plumbing. At what's the name of the one in Ordot? There are no working bathrooms. We've heard this about several schools, no working bathrooms. So I ask that we not support this bill because we would be allowing them to go around in circles as opposed to going forward, which I think we all need to do for the sake of these students, their parents, and our teachers. Jesus Masi.
You're welcome, Speaker Chilai. Anyone else on the main motion? Anyone on the main motion? Who? Senator Sabina?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So when I first started teaching at Simon Sanchez, I think that was over, 2009 or 2010, I believe. When I first visited the school, I was kind of shocked. It's like, how does learning happen here? And then I soon found out that it was the teachers. The teachers really created this environment of learning, despite the disrepair of the schools. And that was before the rat infestation took place. And that was before all the breakdown of the school as we see it today took place. And so what we're dealing with, what brought us here today, is really the neglect over the decades. And our decision as a body to pass Bill 2937, which is now Public Law 37-4, because we knew the importance of our students and the facilities that they're in. We knew that this was a vital part of their education. And it still is. I mean, I hear, just from last year alone, the lack of air conditions really brought down the capability of our teachers to really conduct proper learning, to have this proper learning environment. And so when we're talking about delaying compliance, it has such a huge impact on the ability of our teachers to teach and our students to learn. If anybody has walked into Simon Sanchez before in the past years, you would notice the strong smell of mold and the health effects that it had on the teachers, the students. And so when we're talking about education, we can't separate the health from this. How can one learn when one is sick? And I think we really need to stay the course. And I truly believe, what I'm seeing is that there is a strategy in place to accommodate face-to-face learning. And what we haven't seen is the all hands on deck approach yet, which I was really trying to push for in the last oversight hearing, because there was a breakdown between phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 schools, right? And so the goal is to get as much schools up running, which are phase 1, phase 2. Those are the closest ones to becoming in compliance. So phase 1 is the ones where the school can handle the issues with in-house. The phase 2 is going to require agency support, other agencies coming in. And so that's where we need to support DOE in addition to what these other bills do. We need to ensure that these other agencies can provide that much needed support to get them in compliance. The Army Corps of Engineers, they're a huge resource, and we need other agencies to help coordinate the fixing up of the schools. And we're talking about people with expertise. They have the engineering background, they have all these diverse backgrounds that is going to be needed to make these schools come into compliance. The other group is the Guam National Guard, and so we've seen them in times of our pandemic public health emergency, where they came in and they provided huge support for the community. And it was one of those elements that helped us overcome such a huge obstacle. And so I truly believe we need to stay the course and to bring everybody together to get past this obstacle. We've seen it happen in just this recent future. And I believe Department of Education is undergoing a public health emergency. This is a public health emergency for our community that is attending school, our professionals that are there, our administrators. This is a public health emergency. And we need to take it head on like we did with the COVID health emergency. We just need to remember and re-energize our community, because we all know we are here for the children. We are here for our teachers, our educational community. We just need to make sure that we have the all hands on deck. And so I truly ask my colleagues that we stay the course. Another point that was brought up by the retiring speaker is that, so I remember in the superintendent, the question was asked about malware. So what has it done to affect compliance? So one of the things he said was that it did affect, it did add on some of the tasks that needed to be addressed, but what it also did is it opened up funding to handle emergencies. And so, just like the retiring speaker said, we have a combination. Perhaps this is one of the reasons why we had deferred maintenance over so many years, because we didn't have the funding. But now we have this opportunity of funding to address these issues head on. Not just from the ARPA funds, we have funding from the Inflation Reduction Act, the infrastructure bill, and now we have money coming through FEMA. And if we put all our bright minds together, because I believe the answers are in the community, the answers are from us, and we just need to make sure we put our bright minds and coordinate this together. We can overcome this obstacle like we have. And so I ask my colleagues to stay the course. Sutus Masi.
Sutus Masi, Senator. On the bill, anyone else would like to be recognized on the bill? If not, then the sponsor may close. Senator Lujan, on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand in full support of Bill 15937. You know, I've heard about where this bill came from, whether we got calls from the governor's office. And you know, to be honest with you, I'll tell you, if I got a call from the governor's office, I would definitely answer her call. I would see what she wanted. I've always been straight with the governor. I once served with her, actually a couple of us served with her in the 27th and 28th Guam Legislature. We agreed at times and mostly disagreed. She's your chief executive now. And we can continue to agree to disagree. But in our disagreement, we don't have to hate and not want to communicate. So if she did call, which she didn't, no, she did not call, I would definitely take the call. That's what we all said during the election, that we're going to work together. This bill, 15937, was born out of 2 days of Committee of the Whole. There was resistance about the Committee of the Whole. We wanted to hear the experts. And when we look at experts, we want to have the agency. We're not public health people. We're not DOE people. Maybe some of us were teachers at once, or maybe some of us were public health workers at once, but I wasn't either. We wanted to make informed decisions, wise decisions, correct decisions. We asked the questions, not only in 2 days of Committee of the Whole, but also yesterday in the budget hearing with Public Health. And there were two sections, and I spoke about these two sections in regards to variances. I asked Public Health yesterday about variance and how easy a variance can be granted. In some cases, it's fairly easy, but in most cases, it's not. Letters have to be written, and mitigation situations have to be done, and all that. So it's not that easy. Likewise, another section where the governor is authorized to detail inspectors. If any one of you had built homes recently or tried to get a business license recently, you would know. If I was a director of one of the agencies and the governor said, release your inspectors, I'd say, huh? Are you kidding me? These people that are lining up since this morning are going to kill me if I don't have any inspectors. We're bottleneck as it is right now with the inspectors we got in all these agencies. That will strain the other agencies for one. And likewise, the question yesterday regarding getting these inspectors up to speed to be able to be the health inspectors for public health. Public health says they can't just tomorrow come over to our agency and they're out and fully fit and authorized to be able to do inspections. It can't happen. You know, this hall is named after esteemed, wise individual, Speaker Antonio Ampinco. And he always said, boy, stand your ground, but also this is the people's house, and you need to know how to compromise. And likewise, as a previous speaker had said, sometimes we have to change course or back up a little bit because the experts in front of us had spoken, had told us the challenges. There's nothing in this bill, not one of us here wants our kids in dilapidated, broken down, rat-infested schools. That's not what this is about. We were told about their challenges. Yes, this didn't just happen yesterday. This has gone on for years, absolutely. Absolutely. I continued to ask that question in oversight hearings. How come we're not holding the previous superintendents accountable for these things? But here we are. We're here today. I've been asking, of course, the governor to proclaim a state of emergency in the Department of Education. She said it's not her authority. I don't believe that, but okay, we're here. What authority do we have? Let's call in people that know more than us, how their operations run. Through that information, this bill was born. It wasn't just born from one side of the aisle, it was born from both sides of the aisle. It's a bipartisan bill. Bill 3704, I voted for it. Great intention, absolutely, fantastic. Got nothing against it. But when people come up and say, these are the challenges, yeah, money is not an issue at this point. It's staffing to be able to get that done. And what we need to remember is that we need to get our kids into schools to have a holistic education. Holistic education. And when I talk about holistic education, it's not just in the classroom, but outdoor activities as well. Sports programs. As a parent of 2 kids, went through public school, and were able to get their 4-year education and through full scholarships, because not only of academics, but because of their sports performance. Senior year was very critical to be able to sign a letter of intent to be able to go to college. So holistic education, not just for the public school here, but all the private schools that are dependent on competitions between the public schools. They need to be looked at as well. Their letters of intent will be coming. Education is just not one facet. It's holistic. Mind, body, and spirit. Nobody. I'm a product of public school. Just this weekend, we celebrated our 50th anniversary, 50th reunion, John F. Kennedy High School. Some of us, and like my primo, and Senator Chris Duenas as well, alumni of JFK. Some of us, especially the ones that were visiting from off island who hasn't seen the new school, wanted to tour the school, but they couldn't because it's one of the schools that were not allowed in, at least at the time. My nephews now are going to that school. They're products of public schools. Do you think I want them in dilapidated, broken down, infested schools? Absolutely not. Do you think right now that the microscope is on DOE and public health in the schools, that this bill will allow them to say, hey, anak, agupa? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Time after time, we asked. I mean, and some of the comments earlier dispelled some of the answers that were given to us by DOE, and Department of Public Health and Social Services? Or took it to mean something else? As the author of the bill, that I don't know what the resistance was for the Committee of the Whole. I know I could not make an informed decision or vote if I didn't hear what I heard, if I didn't ask the questions that I asked, likewise from my colleagues as well. That is why I agreed to sign on to this bill, because it doesn't relieve the Department of Education or Public Health of any of their duties that they're currently doing right now. It doesn't do any of that. This is about our kids receiving a holistic education. And we've been told, what? Some of the schools might be ready by the end of the year. Your first quarter sports will be over. We'll be done. This year, football is first quarter sports. What's going to happen if they don't play first quarter sports? And they're waiting for a college letter. What is this body going to say and do to a potential full ride or half a ride to a D1, D2, or maybe even D3 college? How are we going to respond to that? And like I said, a holistic education is not just our public schools. The other schools are dependent on us as well. Our students are dependent on that as well. This doesn't grant DOE to step aside and go ahead, play in conditions that are terrible. Absolutely not. Not only was I a product of public school, from Sinahadi Elementary, now CL Titano, to GW Junior High, which is Agueda Johnson, and then, of course, JFK. My mother was a school teacher for 35 years. I remember she used to take me into school. We would be there now if we were starting school, because we're putting up her posters and things like that, because she taught first and second grade. And at that time, of course, I couldn't speak English. She just spoke Chamorro, because she wouldn't dare teach me how to speak English. She goes, when you start school, you're going to be able to speak English. So this bill does nothing to relieve DOE or public health with its duties to fix up the schools and get it ready. This is a result of what they're asking us. What can we do for, to help them to be able to get there? And likewise, there are more eyes now. There are more eyes now on the schools. Do you think now that we won't be getting calls if they're not ready or if they're lackadaisical about things? This is not about the governor and what she wants. This is about a collaborative effort to get really all hands on deck. Not just one set of hands, not just two, everybody's hands on deck. This is not about one upmanship or another. This is about the kids. This is not about us. It's not about the governor. This is about holistic education for kids and what we can do to manifest that holistic education. And with that, I ask my colleagues to please rise to support of Bill 15937. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, is there any other senator who would like to be recognized? If not, then the sponsor may close on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank my colleagues for the presentation, for their support, for talking either for or against this piece of legislation. You know, this body was put together because there existed a problem. There exists a problem. So we were brought in haste and in urgency to be able to lend a hand to that. And in the process of learning of what the issue is, there were discussions. There were sharing of ideas. There was sharing of discontent. But there was sharing of ideas. And that's what this body is built for. Is to collectively share in these ideas, discuss them, bring up more ideas, talk about them, disagree with them, make it better, but at the end of the day, it's to make things better. So whether you're for or against it, that's what this body deserves to hear. And I say this in preface to what I thought I was hearing in as far as opposition or dissension to the bill to, wait a minute, I thought you said you didn't like the bill. But you speak of the value of this bill as well as the value of the other bills that are discussed. Because I believed also collectively that as a result of the number of days of conversations that we've had and the number of bills that have been presented, they're all great ideas. Things that we can add into a toolbox so that this issue can be resolved. We can take care of this matter. This matter can be taken care of. Does Bill 15937, the end-all and the grail, holy grail to resolving this? No. But in working in concert with the other tools, with the other bills that were discussed, it provides that necessary, those tools that are necessary to get to the end game. What is the end game? It's to provide a safe, healthy, and conducive school environment for our kids. In providing that, what we don't want to do is we don't want to rush this. We want to make sure it's done right. You know, it's kind of interesting because would we be having this conversation had we not had the millions of dollars provided by Uncle Sam? In ARP and otherwise? FEMA money? We're probably scratching our heads trying to figure out how we're going to be able to fund $250,000. It's not the money. We're asking carpenters to walk into a place to be able to build things and not give them the tools, not give them the hammer, the drill, or the nails necessary.
We're asking Masons to patch up the walls and not give them the cement truck, or the cement for that matter. What this bill does, along with the other bills that have been discussed, provides them with all of those. You know, there's nothing in this bill that mandates that or tells GOD that they could send their kids to unsafe or unhealthy classrooms. Nothing here. What it provides GDOE, though, and the others that want to help out, is the ability to be able to go in there and do things and clean it out. We said in public hearing, I mean, in the round table, there are people who want to be able to come in, because of there's this yellow tape that says you can't walk in there, they can't go in and help. Then you're right. It does take a community, to be able to resolve this. And the answers do lie in the community. And this gives the community the opportunity to be able to provide that. This bill doesn't, there was another claim that this bill would take the administration off the hook. No, it doesn't. It still says you will comply with 3704. It was also said that this bill, it has a reporting requirement, it had a reporting requirement that was already consistent and already appeared to be a reiteration of what was in 3704. No, what Bill 159-37 does is, on top of telling us where you're at, it also requires them to provide where the challenges are and what the proposed corrective actions will be. It provides that on a monthly basis, you will show us the progress. It doesn't say you're going to have to wait. You're going to wait until the start of the 24-25 school year to get things done. It says you will do things now. You will continue to do things now. If you can get it done before 24-25, start 24-25 school year, great. But you will still get it done. I've never once came into this hall and ever felt that I needed to follow somebody else's plan and somebody else's idea because my plan will never work. I always gave the opportunity for individuals to be able to talk about, not just about my plan, but what about their plans? Because maybe I missed something there. Maybe they added something more to it that will make it a better plan. And that's what we did over the last couple of days. And that's what Bill 159-37 does. In the effort to provide a clean, healthy, and conducive educational facility, classroom, for our kids. Where you think we allowed the ball to drop, or where you think we got them off the hook, we get them off the hook, or where you think we say that it's not going to be a priority, it's not in this bill. It's not in this bill. Nor is it in any other bills that has been deliberated in this emergency session. You know what this bill, along with the other bills, provide? Different plans. One man once told me, if plan A doesn't work, don't worry, there's 25 other letters in the alphabet. So if it doesn't work, if Plan A doesn't work, does that mean we stop? No, we give you the options. We give you Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, and Plan D, with the ultimate goal of getting it done. That's all it does. So, Madam Chair, in closing, I want to thank my colleagues for their input. And if I may be allowed, I'd like to make an amendment to the bill to basically, unless otherwise they don't want, to add every member of this body as co-sponsors to this piece of legislation. Okay. Absent Senator Chris Barnett. Absent.
On the motion, is there any objection? Anyone who doesn't want can just inform the clerk. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker, with that, I'm moved to place Bill 159-37 LS as amended on the floor into the third reading.
On the motion to place Bill 159-37 onto the third reading, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We're now on Bill number 158-37 LS. Senator San Nicolas, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to move Bill number 158-37 LS to third reading for discussion.
Please proceed.
Thank you, ma'am. I asked the visiting education people yesterday. Thought I asked them, I said, I'm working on a bill to allow you some discretion to make the determination whether parts or all of the schools you deem safe, you could go ahead and operate. And they all breathed a sigh of relief because they said it would make everybody happy. And so if there's anything that I've ever wanted to do in my entire life is just to make people happy. And so this bill allows the superintendent a little leeway, and I also had some suggestion from a esteemed Republican colleague that she would like to add an amendment. And just to make it a little bit more clear, but this bill allows the superintendent to make the determination whether he would like to open the school or portion of the school to be operational. You know, as a former Guam Customs officer, remember adopting the schools, adopting one school, and we go out there and with a whole platoon of our officers, and water blasted it. About this time, we're getting it all prepared, and I don't know if that's getting done now. And then when I transferred from customs to become a school counselor, one of the first offices they put me in had it was rainy season about that time, and there was a leak. And the principal, I mentioned to the principal, I said, this is not conducive to counseling. And so what he did was he moved me to another portion of the school that was cleaner and safer, and I was able to do my work there. And this is something that that is an amalgamation, I guess, of my experiences, to allow some leeway and authority to make the decision to be able to operate the school or certain parts of the school so that we can open on a timely manner and send the students back to school. I really love a lot of the comments here. The emergency is actually getting the kids into the school, and I agree with that. Thank you, Senator Fisher, for that comment, and also how important it is for our scholastic sports to to continue in a timely manner. But along with all the other bills, and this bill doesn't disparage any of them. It actually kind of like works hand in hand, but actually gives a little bit more of a breathing room so that we can all allow the people in authority to make that decision in light of all their testimony, the opportunity to make the decision whether to open up a school or not. And just this afternoon when we were leaving for lunch, everybody was happy, and Democrats and Republicans were giggling on the way out and having a great time, and it was wonderful. It's nice to see when we have our both sides of the aisle working together. I see that today, and I applaud them. I bet our Republican and Democratic chair people are probably scratching their head, what's going on down there? But it shows that the great amount of our body is willing to work together and do the right thing. And I'd like to thank my colleagues on both sides who wanna see that through. Ni tafan afamalik, tafan agoti kanai, zatana mas malik estihin anauta mona, para todo itautauta. Sijus Marasi, Madam Speaker.
Sijus Masi, Senator, on the bill, Bill 158. Is there any other senator who'd like to be recognized on the bill? Senator Taitskui, you're recognized.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Bill 158-37, as mentioned by the author, the good author, is another alternative, another means of trying to get, like Senator Fisher said, get their doggins in the seat and start learning. It provides just a straightforward, alternative. I did speak with the good author of this legislation and offered some amendments for two reasons. One, to bring a check and balance to his legislation. And the second one is to still continue to provide a reporting requirement, one that's more extensive than Public Law 37-4, which also has a sunset clause involved. So the good author totally agreed. He thought it was a good idea to do that, to include it. So that being said, Madam Speaker, I noticed that it's not on the desks of our colleagues. It's just now being passed out, I believe. Yeah. But it is in the Google Drive for my the colleagues to, and for the sake of time, as they're passing it out, I will go ahead and, if anybody needs a copy, I believe, if you want me to take a short break or just continue on, Madam Speaker? Okay, I'll continue on. So the amendment, Madam Speaker, to Bill 158-37, the first amendment is on line 14, page 1. And in this amendment, I guess what I'll do, it's section 2, authorization to operate Guam public schools for school years 2023 to 2024. Notwithstanding any provisions of law, the Guam Department of Education is hereby authorized to operate schools that are awaiting inspection for school year 2023-2024. Guam Department of Education, GDOE schools that have failed inspections may continue to operate at the discretion and approval of the superintendent of GDOE and the Director of Public Health and Social Services. The part that was amended was to include and the Director of Public Health and Social Services. Madam Speaker, that's my first amendment. It's all on one page, so if you'd like me to pause and we work on this amendment.
On the amendment, is there anyone else who'd like to speak on that amendment? On that amendment, Section 2. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on the amendment? Senator San Nicolas on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this the same amendment still being passed out?
Yes, Madam Speaker, it's, there are two amendments. It's on the same page. If you'd like me to continue.
On the amendment, is there anyone who'd like to be recognized on the amendment now that the copies have all been passed out? On the amendment, Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If the author, the good author of the amendment, could explain the role of the Director of Public Health and Social Services relative to allowing GDOE schools that have failed inspection to continue to operate.
The amendment, sorry.
Would the author yield?
Absolutely, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the person asking the question. It was a good question. And as I mentioned, as I was speaking earlier about the amendment, my amendment just provides this checks and balances. On the legislation itself that's been introduced as Bill 158-37, it says here that notwithstanding any provisions of law, the Guam Department of Education is hereby authorized to operate schools that are waiting inspection for school year 23-24. So this already authorizes them to open up their schools. The second part is that Guam DOE schools that have failed inspections may continue to operate at the discretion and approval of the superintendent of DOE. Now, that's the original legislation. If there's any questions on that, that the author of Bill 158 may answer. But my inclusion into the amendment is to include that check and balance to continue to have public health and social services be a part of this approval of the opening of schools. That was my intention.
Senator Barnett.
I'm hoping that the good author can further clarify, because if we want the Director of Public Health and Social Services to use his discretion and approval, then why don't we just stick with Bill 156 and Public Law 37-4? Just seems contradictory, ma'am, that we're in this measure allowing schools to remain open without the appropriate public health inspection, but then we're saying if they have failed inspection that public health can get involved if we're allowing schools to not. I'm just very confused about the role of the director. Maybe if the author of the amendment could provide a theoretical scenario so that I might better understand.
Are you asking her to yield? Would the author yield?
If she would kindly,
Well,
give us a scenario where
Sure.
you have a school, let's say a school is shut down for rat infestation or otherwise failed an inspection, and the superintendent decides to continue operating this school, and the Director of Public Health agrees or doesn't agree. Is that what you're saying?
Well, sorry.
Yes, would the author yield?
Thank you. Yes, I will. Not a problem. I'll try and do my best on a scenario that he just actually mentioned about any rats, in the school. It's a very simple amendment to not only include that the superintendent has the authority and approval to continue to operate the school, but it's obvious that now public health is involved as well and would have to have that same kind of discretion and approval. So the scenario would be that if the superintendent goes in and sees that, that if there's rats there, he's told us he's not going to let any of these kids go into somewhere that's unsafe in the first place. So that's good to know. But guess what? Now there's a second layer to ensure that safety, and it's public health. So they will too have to look at that scenario and see if it's okay. So I don't know what more. We can talk about stray dogs on the campus that may cause harm. It's still, you're going to have both agree that it's still safe. So I hope that answers his question. I'm trying to be very,
Thank you.
Senator Barnett.
I'm just wondering if public health is not going to be involved in inspecting or granting sanitary permits at the school, then what authority would they have to make any kind of determination? Because the bill apparently allows the schools to operate without the involvement of public health. So but anyway, I'm good, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
On the amendment, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the amendment? Vice Speakers.
Speaker Jalai, on the amendment, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So on this bill, the Section 2 in the bill originally says, DOE can operate schools awaiting inspection, meaning without sanitary permits, without having passed sanitary or complying with sanitary rules and regulations, especially if the previous bill passes. So no compliance, no inspections, but operate those schools. This amendment says even failed schools can operate, even those that have been inspected and failed, meaning they are not sanitary, can operate with the approval of the superintendent. That's exactly the status quo that we had prior to April. That's exactly how we got to the situation that we are in. Because we did not force them to make the changes. We said, keep operating. It's more important that they have a regular football practice than that they have a safe seat to put their derrieres in. Let's put them into dirty seats and dirty schools, because that's education. That's what some of my colleagues seem to be implying. And then they say, don't worry, even if a school fails, the superintendent can let you operate anyways, bring your students in and your teachers. You think any teacher wants to operate with mold? I don't think so. Not with all the respiratory illness on Guam. But the superintendent can say, we open this school, you come in. You do not have a choice. You are a teacher, I mandate you, you come in. And now we say, of course, let's get the director of public health who failed the school, who must have not granted the variances. If we want to say director of public health, he has this capability right now to grant variances in the school and to do it in a very systematic, documented way that protects the students. This allows them to do it in a way that does not necessarily protect the students. There's no criteria, there's no mandate. We're messing around with their mandate. We're saying, forget what you were using to grant variances to schools that might be safe enough to open, despite, the violations. They're still safe enough. We're saying schools that are absolutely not safe enough and were not able to get variances and failed, that the Director of Public Health is going to set aside all the criteria, that they were doing some kind of mitigation to protect the students' health, that there is some kind of permanent solution on its way. He's setting that aside now by this. And I don't think we should do that. Because I just think the pressure is going to be too intense. We have seen it. They were granting variances, and all of a sudden, they couldn't grant any variances. And I think it's political pressure. That's the reality of the situation we're in. And I don't think either the superintendent or the Director of Public Health needs any more political pressure. They need less. We need them to do their jobs exactly as their jobs are supposed to be done. If you're the public health, then you better make sure it's health. And if you're the education, then educate. Don't allow the education person to tell a teacher that a classroom is safe when public health has told those teachers it is not safe. And we've seen it. If we didn't see it, we might want to believe it. That's the thing. We have given them all the good faith in the world, all the good intentions, and we have accepted that. We are a very accepting community. But the problem is, if we accept this, we're going back to status quo before April. We are not. We are going to put this burden again that the parents aren't going to find out in advance that their schools were infested or that the roofs were falling down on the students or that anything was happening. They're not. They're not going to find out in advance unless public health goes in there in advance. And when public health does go in there in advance and fails them, we want public health to say it's okay. I know I want to believe, we want the same thing. We want the schools to open. We want them to be fixed finally and once and for all. At least fixed enough for the next 10 years. And yes, some of them have to be rebuilt. But there is no legislation before us right now to rebuild them. And there is no time to rebuild a school. So let's just force them to make them safe. Not keep giving them escape clauses, because we're not giving them any tools here. Not a tool to make it safe. We're giving them tools to make it less safe, unsafe, but operable. And we're giving them escape routes. And it's not these two individuals, it's the entire government of Guam that we're giving this escape to. When right now, the entire government of Guam is on the hook. I hope we are all feeling the pressure that the Department of Education is under, that we are all under. That if we cannot open these schools enough for the students on August 23rd, we fail, all of us as a government. Not these parents or these teachers. We fail, we legislators. And if we go back and tell them, no teachers, oh, we did it, we opened your school, now go in there and teach with that mold because the superintendent said it's okay. And because we allowed the Director of Public Health to bypass every sanitary rule and every variance requirement and open it anyways. Maybe we should all be indicted if that's the case. Because that's exactly what we are saying by this amendment. We're saying we, the policymakers of Guam, want our kids in schools that are not safe, that could not pass an inspection, could not comply with sanitary rules. Please. The parents and the students are relying on us. There has never been an opportunity like there is today. And if on August 23rd you want to waive every requirement in the book and open every school, then let's come back and you do that. But I say right now, while the mandate is on them to repair the schools, make them safe, why are we giving them an escape clause right now? This is the only chance that those students have. This is it. Giving them 365 more days, that lets every senator in here go relax until they send in their reports. They've been sending in their reports since May. Read the reports and you will know all the information that anybody ever wanted to know. Read the variance list that they've sent in variances for and why the Department of Public Health has denied it or asked them for more information and they're not ready. Read the list of violations from some of the schools. Public Health told us yesterday, Atticao is infested. This amendment says the superintendent can allow you into an infested school and a moldy school and any kind of
point of information, Madam Speaker,
what
if
is
I may.
Speaker, Senator Titagui, I will address you on the point of information. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the amendment just includes Department of Public Health and Social Services. That's what the amendment does. That's all. Not DOE or anyone. So I just want to make that clear.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. But I can read the bill and I can interpret it for myself. I don't need anyone to read it to me or tell me what it does. That's what we're doing in here. We're debating what this bill actually does as opposed to misleading all the people of Guam and giving them baloney. This doesn't help the Department of Education. It tells the rest of the government of Guam, you don't have to help them. We'll just put this immense pressure on the superintendent to waive all public health requirements and open a school. You don't have to help them. We'll just put this immense pressure on the parents and the teachers who do not want their students. They want them to go to school, but they do not want them to be sick or suffer.
Madam Speaker, I rise to a point of order.
Here we go again.
I apologize. What did you say? A point of what?
Point of order.
A point of interruption is what these are.
Speaker, please. A point of information. Please state your point of information.
Thank you, Madam. The Speaker is in violation of Rule 101. Debate is limited to a proposal before the House. That is the amendment, not the substance of the original motion. I specifically cite Section 101, Mason's Manuals, Paragraph 1 and Paragraph 6. This discussion that she's engaged in is out of order. Thank you, ma'am.
Duly noted, Senator Fisher. Speaker Terlahi, you may proceed.
Madam Speaker, am I out of order?
I duly noted the conversation on the floor. I'm asking you to proceed, Speaker.
Thank you. I like these interruptions. They let me catch my breath.
Okay.
And they let me refocus. Because God forbid that we tell the truth to the people of Guam about what we're trying to do in here today. We're not giving them any tools. We're taking the tools that they need, which is the pressure from the government of Guam, away, and we're allowing the Director of Public Health to waive all his rules. And we're allowing the superintendent to mandate teachers to come in despite schools not being safe, and to expect to teach, and we're mandating, worst of all, the students to come in at the whim of the superintendent and the director of public health. Again, this amendment waives inspections, it waives failed inspections, and allows the superintendent of education to decide that my students can go to schools that are not safe, and it allows the director of public health to open schools without sanitary permits. Is that really a thing? And to open schools that have failed inspection, that he has declared unsafe, that he has not given variance to because they haven't proven the requirements of a variance. But regardless of all of that, allow them to open, because the government of Guam couldn't be bothered to help the Department of Education to get the tools. This doesn't give them a carpenter, it gives them less carpenters. It tells them they don't need one, just open it up anyways. And it tells the director of public health, you're being too hard on these schools. Rats are okay. What's your problem? Open the schools. Waive those variances. So I raise an objection to this amendment.
Thank you, Speaker Terlahi. Anyone else on the Taitagui amendment? Anyone else? Senator San Nicolas, I will recognize you on the Taitagui amendment. Senator San Nicolas, I apologize. I was told by the clerk that you have already had your turn. Is there anyone else on the amendment? Senator San Agustin on the amendment. I will recognize you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm just trying to understand the commotion and all the claims. The amendment says, schools of failed inspection may continue to operate at the discretion and approval of the superintendent and the director of public health. Yesterday, public health said they won't approve anything. If it ain't ready to be open, it's not going to open. And at the same token, I know none of you were in the Board of Education. I was. And when I was on the Board of Education, when the school was shut down, a superintendent was terminated because the school was unsafe. And we demanded then, unfortunately, it wasn't demanded 4 years ago when the ARP money came in, but there was no cry that the superintendent be held accountable. That's all it says, is that there got to be a joint approval. And I don't believe, and I like the part where there's going to be monthly oversight. The oversight chair of education can call him every month and say, hey, I want to know where we're at. At no point does this amendment or any of this bill says the school is dirty, go in. I believe that on every teacher and every administrator, or the administrators start with the principals, they're responsible to make sure the schools are in fact safe for the students, and more so before the students come in, it's safe for their staff. It's like what we do in this body. When the bathrooms weren't working, we didn't allow any business in this building. In any other establishment or business, in any department. If the restroom don't work, you don't work. You tell them stay at home, online, or whatever you want to call it. But you don't allow the operation. If there was a mold in this building, we will not allow our employees or ourselves to be here because why? It's unsafe. It's dangerous for our employees. I believe the Department of Education will take note of that. If it's dangerous for a teacher or any of the staff, it is definitely very, very dangerous for students. Because many of the students have their own medical problems. And the government of Guam can't afford to be sued. We want to talk about all the restrictions, I think this amendment actually adds all the protection to make sure it doesn't happen. So I don't understand what the cry to say that we're going to allow people to go in there to a dirty school. No, it doesn't say that. The schools that have failed inspection may continue to operate. Really? I think the question should be, at the time when they failed, did they fail because there's no door? Let's look at the different demerits that happens that adds up to a failure. And then the oversight chair will be responsible to make sure he follows up on that. And then as soon as he follows up and says, Senator Joe, we need to figure out how we can get funds. Then we work together as a team to find a way to help them. At no point does this amendment says, send the kids to a dirty school. Gosh, if we want to talk about infestation, I talked to many of my family and friends, or many of my friends, and they said the infestation has been there for decades. They're already on third, fourth generation. They're nothing new. But there's got to be a point, and that's where the point is at today now. And what we've been going after since the beginning of this term. Let's clean it up. Let's get involved. We are involved. All the bills are great. They're different tools to help DOE. DOE needs all the tools they need. They also need a board that will hold the superintendent accountable. If the schools are not clean and they're not safe, then the Board of Education needs to decide if they need to keep him or her, whichever it may be. And then they move on from there. When we want to talk about ARP money, 4 years ago it wasn't 110, it was 237. Folks, it was 287, and then they gave money to charter school or to charter schools and everybody else. And then it dwindled down to 237. It is down to 110. And if we all remember correctly, when the Army Corps of Engineers was here, they said $100 million would have deferred all the construction for the schools. Was a single penny paid under that program? Probably not. So let's not make all these excuses of everything. We're working all together as a team. Today, it's not about Democrat or Republican. It's about the Guam Legislature, the body, speaking and trying to figure out a way to help. It's the same three questions I've always asked to everybody in agencies. Where are you at? Where you want to go? And how can we help you? And that's what we're all trying to do. We asked them the questions during the Committee of the Whole. Where are you at? Where you want to go? And now we've come to different bills to help. There's not one bill better than the other. And like everybody's used to saying, there's not one head better than, or smarter than the other. But as we work as 15 senators, we can come to the conclusion that all the bills are great. And the oversight chair will be responsible to make sure, DOE, I want to see your stuff. The oversight chair for public health can say, hey, where are you at? And then if it comes to me, if it needs to be the guy that's in charge of general government operations, maybe I'll just do oversight and see where they're all at. And that's not what I want to do. But I expect the oversight chairs to do what they're supposed to do, and we as a body come to terms of what we need to do, and we move on. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine, on the amendment. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? If not, I will allow Senator Tadegui to close on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The previous speaker, just everything he said, ditto, 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 ditto. I mean, here's an individual who has more experience with the Department of Education than any of us sitting in this body. And it's so, the word comes to me disingenuous when we have people on this session floor saying the sky is falling down. When this amendment, Madam Speaker, just simply adds another layer of checks and balances by adding Department of Public Health and Social Services. So those who are watching right now, all it does, ladies and gentlemen, My dear people of Guam, all it does is Guam Department of Education, who has the authority to open up schools, they have to also get approval from Department of Public Health and Social Services. That's all it simply does. It just adds Department of Public Health and Social Services. It's just simple. I mean, everything that Senator San Agustin said, I would like to reiterate, but I know that it's just a matter of standing up here and taking up the full 15 minutes just for the sake of saying the sky is falling. But everybody has the prerogative to stand up here and speak. I'm not, saying it's a bad thing, but I just wish people would be more or less disingenuous when they do that. One thing for sure, when I meet people out on the street or at the store or run into them, they're smarter than you think, everybody. They are a lot smarter. They can read between the lines. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome, Senator Taitagui. There has been an objection to the Taitagui amendment, and I'm going to ask all those in favor of Senator Taitagui's amendment, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries.
Madam Speaker, there's two parts to that amendment.
Yes, I am going to continue to ask you to proceed on the other part of the amendment. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I will read it in for the record. The amendment that we're placing, it's a new Section 3 to Bill 158. And this is very similar to Bill 159. It's the reporting requirements. And it basically says, reporting requirements, Section A, GDOE, shall submit monthly written reports to the Speaker of the Legislature in Guam detailing the status of each public school's compliance or non-compliance with Article 7, Chapter 26 of these rules and regulations that will result in the suspension of the sanitary permit of GDOE public schools. Such report shall include, but not be limited to, the proposed corrective actions which will be taken to avoid suspension of its sanitary permit or to support GDOE's request for variance under this chapter. Section B. Until such time, all GDOE public schools have obtained sanitary permits required under this chapter, GDOE shall be subject to monthly oversight hearings to report on the status of this compliance or non-compliance with Article 7, Chapter 26 of these rules and regulations, and also to allow legal to make any technical corrections. And that is the amendment, Madam Speaker.
On the amendment, I'm going to hold a moment's recess. Imina Chantashatina Guahan is back from recess. On the Taitagui amendment, anyone wishing to speak? If not, are there any objections? Senator Speaker Terlahi, I do apologize. You are recognized on the Taitagui amendment.
Thank you. I object to this amendment too. I suppose I could close my eyes and let it go through because it duplicates what we're trying to do in another bill, but just in case that bill gets vetoed, maybe, I don't know, it's already a law, actually. What this amendment says is DOE has to report to the legislature monthly their corrective actions and their requests for variance and how their schools are going to get into compliance. Public Law 37-4, which was enacted in April 1st, 2023, mandates that the Guam Department of Education shall conduct immediate site inspections of all public schools to assess and monitor corrective action to meet compliance with these rules and regulations. Submit these reports monthly to the Guam Education Board, the governor, and the legislature, and public health shall also conduct site inspections. And Public Law 37-4, since April 1st, 2023, also mandated the Director of Public Health to submit a report on the 5th day of every month, monthly, of all the written requests for variances and whether they were approved or denied, the category, and they shall be categorized by school or operator and shall cover the preceding month. And so we've been receiving these reports. So we received the reports, and we received the reports, and we received the reports. Does that help the Department of Education? No. But let's mandate again that we receive the reports, because that's going to help the Department of Education. It's not. If we would read the reports, then maybe we can help the Department of Education. We would know the status of the variances right now, and what's the proposal to solve that? What's the tool that we give them to solve the problem with compliance, the problems that they're having with corrective actions, or with variances? Those are the tools we gave them in the bill that we were originally called into emergency session for. And those are the tools we gave them in Public Law 37-4. And those are the tools that we gave the governor in the last emergency typhoon bill that we did, authorizing her to help the Department of Education in every way possible with the funds that we sent up there. And the second part of this amendment says, in addition to giving us the reports, again, which they have been doing, and they're continued to be mandated to do that, we are going to put DOE subject to monthly oversight hearings. What's new there? I think since April 1st, they've been subject to oversight hearing after oversight hearing, committee of the whole hearing, hearing after hearing. But you have to hear them if you want to have a hearing. Hear them. They are saying, we can do this, but we need help. And we are not receiving the help. That's what they said. So can we as a legislature get back together as a group and make sure they get the help that they need instead of giving a way out and saying, okay, you didn't get the help you needed to fix the schools, so just open them anyways. If we're going to require them to come and read their reports to us and not read them ourselves, how does that help them? If they weren't already doing this, of course I would support this. But it seems frivolous if they're already mandated to do that. They are willingly doing that because they are asking us for help. And we have asked them to tell us what the problems are so we can formulate bills that actually give them some tools as opposed to giving them a toolbox full of excuse slips. This would require them that because we're allowing them to operate the schools despite failing inspections, that they will just report to us what the problems are. I don't know how that makes a student safer. We are a legislature. That does not get them a carpenter. We have given them the tools to get the carpenters. We need the executive branch to also do its part to get them the carpenters, the electricians, the mold mitigation. That's all we need. We need those things to just happen. With all the money that my colleagues have given, with all the money that ARP has given, with all the money that prior legislatures have devoted, but especially federal funds, let's just give them the tools to spend that, give them the tools to get the help they need, because we've seen, even with the money, they need help. There are no ceiling tiles on Guam. They're saying now maybe the air cons are going to be delayed. That's why they are working with public health on variances for air cons. But public health is insisting you can't just say no air cons. You have to show us how you're going to keep the students at a reasonable temperature. So things are, I think, working as they should. The DOE is being held accountable to public health. Public health is being held accountable. They're reporting to us. They're both reporting to us. There's nothing that we don't know, I think, except we don't really understand what's the delay in some of the help and some of the tools that they have asked for. So I don't have any objection in making them report because they're already reporting. And I don't have any objection to making them come in here and read the reports. Actually, I do. I just think that's silly. If we read the reports and we need an oversight hearing, then call an oversight hearing. And if we read the reports and we're going to get 12 months of excuse reports, as opposed to open the schools at the date that you're supposed to open them, comply with the sanitary rules on the date you're supposed to comply, and then we don't need to listen to 365 days worth of those excuses. We would have a plan. We would know on day one why every school's not open and what we're waiting for. And when it changes, we're going to be informed. They're going to be celebrating. Thank you.
You're welcome, Speaker Talai. Senator Fisher, on the Taitagui Amendment, you are recognized.
Thank you, ma'am, but I'm rising to make a motion to recess until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
There is an objection to the motion. All those in favor to recess to, what time did you?
I said 10, but 9's fine.
To 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, please signify by raising your hand. There's been an objection. All those in favor of the Senator Fisher amendment to recess? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Hey, Frank.
How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, I don't want these people working overtime. We're not. That's the problem. So until we get our house in order.
Motion fails. Well, colleagues, I do apologize. The clerk just showed me the counting. Motion carries. We are in recess till tomorrow at 10 o'clock.